I'm sure a lot of you remember March of 2020 when the word came to us that we had to close places of public gathering. The bishops of Ohio worked closely with the governor to assure the governor that they too would ask the churches, the Catholic churches, to close. So we felt very blessed here at John the 23rd because we do have the ability to stream Mass. But we had one Mass, and we operated with a very skeleton crew, a couple musicians, a couple people running the cameras and the sound, a couple people doing the readings, and of course, a priest. And that first Sunday, besides being weird, looking out right now and seeing all these faces, when I could see just two people and a camera, that it was very strange, but we wanted to do it to keep people safe. And when Mass started, one, maybe two people wandered in, and one of them told me afterwards, he was apologizing. He said, I didn't realize there wasn't going to be a public Mass. But otherwise, a couple of people wandered in, and I think they may have stayed, but way back in the back somewhere. After that, it was just that same skeleton crew, the same group, week after week after week for 2.5 months. But somewhere in there, I was talking to another pastor. And at that church, they also had the ability to stream, so they were streaming Mass. But he said that once Mass started, somebody went to the door, designated position, somebody went to the door and locked the door of the church so others would not come in. I suspect on one hand, they were trying to make sure that suddenly they just didn't open the doors as usual to try to keep people safe. On the other hand, they almost took the whole thing of not having gatherings, public gatherings, they took it to the nth degree. So even though I understood what he was saying and I could understand the rationale behind it, it really bothered me when he told me we literally locked the doors of church. Because I think all of my life, and probably for most of you, we've been taught the church is supposed to be open. And of course, this virus is one of, hopefully once in a century, but still that concept of literally locking the doors to keep people out, that's a troublesome thing. Thinking of the door as a symbol of the church, I was struck by this first reading today from Acts of the Apostles. Now, just to give you a little background, Paul was assisted by Barnabas. They were great missionaries, and it talks about all these places they went to. I looked up every one of them. All of them are now in the present country of Turkey. So they weren't really that far from each other. It would almost be like us saying, you know, Paul and Barnabas, they went to Tuntagany and preached the word, and then to Haskins, and they got all the way out to Monclova, and then came back to, you name it. It was that kind of thing. But then they ended up coming back to Antioch, and Antioch was the center. It was one of the early centers of Christianity. And it says they came back there, and the people rejoiced because Paul and Barnabas shared with them the good news. Originally, the gospel was being preached to fellow Jews because the apostles were all Jews. Jesus was Jewish. But then the Gentiles, the non-Jews, started becoming interested. And so when they came back to Antioch, Paul said, I have to tell you, God is opening the doors of faith for the Gentiles. And they rejoiced and they glorified God because of it. God is opening the doors of faith. I don't know if you've ever been outside begging to come through the door. Have you ever been in somebody's house and you ring the doorbell and nobody answers and you're pretty sure they're home? You ring it a second time and then you pound because maybe the doorbell is broken. And then maybe if you're really good, you go around to the back. I've done that. Or maybe you're going to a place of an establishment, a business. You want to get to your banking done early, so you go there and it's supposed to open at 9 o'clock and you're there at 5 of 9 and it's locked, and you know it says 9 o'clock, so you wait outside, and you can peer through the glass wall, a door, and they see you, and at 9 o'clock exactly, they come and open it. It's a feeling of relief. The door is open. On one hand, you're a little angry. Why didn't you let me in early? The other one is, boy, I love you. You opened the door for me. Opening doors simply means it allows us to be part of something. It allows entree or entrance for us. That is a good thing. So we don't want to have locked doors in the church. We want to have open doors. So Paul and Barnabas shared the good news that the doors of faith were being opened. The people loved it. But what does that mean for us 2,000 years later? I've discovered you can open doors when there's a convergence of two things. On one hand, the people need to hear a message. Somewhere deep inside them, there's a hunger, a thirst, a longing. And we don't know what faith these Gentiles had. If they had anything at all, they might have been pagans in some sense of the word. But they might have also realized there's got to be more. The other one was that the other convergent idea is that Paul and Barnabas brought a great message. Can you imagine a better message? The message was of redemption. It's a message, there's a new way to living, the kingdom of God. The message that Jesus died and rose. And furthermore, they not only had the message, they became the message. They embodied it. They made it their own. And I have a hunch that Paul and Barnabas and all of those other early Christians had great fervor, enthusiasm, excitement. They didn't just go through the motions. And that spoke volumes. So what does that mean for us 2,000 years later? That we have to open doors because there are still people who have the hunger, and we've got a message that we can share. Now, here's the problem 2,000 years later. Whereas back in those days, in modern-day Turkey, in Asia Minor, the message of Jesus was unknown. Unfortunately, today, a lot of people, it's still unknown, but they think they know it. They think they know who Jesus was. They think they know what Christianity is. They've seen churches and maybe not seen churches at their best. The hunger is still there, but because they think they know the answer, they don't look where the answer can be found. And the other problem 2,000 years later is we don't always show the great enthusiasm or fervor that I think the early church had. They must have really been excited. This is something that's going to change the world, and by the way, it has. And they lived that way. We kind of go through the motions sometimes. Even the best of us, do we really feel excited about the good news that we embody? Back in the year 1983, so almost 40 years ago, Pope John Paul II, who was Pope at that time, gave a very famous speech. It was to the bishops of Latin America. And you know, traditionally, Latin America has been very Catholic, many baptized people. But he gave this speech to the bishops, and he said, this time calls for, and he used a new term that's been used a lot since then, but it was new. He said, this time calls for a new evangelization. If you think of the first evangelization being the apostles in that early church, the new evangelization means we have to get people excited about their faith once again. And there are many people who are baptized. There are many people who have church membership. There are many people who it's in the background of their life, but not terribly center. There's many people who just go through the motions. And the Pope was saying this new evangelization is to light a fire once again. The new evangelization says, let's make it real. Let's be like those apostles. Let's make it the center of our life. That's the message for us. And when we do have that evangelization in our hearts, when we have that excitement and enthusiasm, then we will be opening doors for others. All those others who really are hungering for the message and the hope that we have.